The call came in while I was locking the front door of my bookstore. It was 8:43 on a Thursday night in Portland, Maine. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then the voicemail arrived before the phone even stopped vibrating. Miss Harper, this is Officer Daniel Ruiz with the Portland Police Department. We found your name inside a locked safety deposit box that belonged to a man who passed away this afternoon. Please call us as soon as possible. I listened to the message 3 times. I didn't know any man with a safety deposit box. At least I didn't think I did. My name is Claire Harper. I'm 37 years old, and I own a small independent bookstore a few blocks from the Portland waterfront. I've spent most of my adult life surrounded by stories. Fiction taught me that every mystery has a beginning. Real life taught me something different. Sometimes the beginning happened years before anyone realized they were living inside it. The next morning, I walked into the police station expecting a misunderstanding. Instead, Officer Ruiz placed a worn leather envelope on the table between us. Do you recognize this handwriting? The moment I looked at it, every sound in the room disappeared. It was my mother's handwriting. My mother had died 11 years earlier. The officer slid a thin document across the table. The deceased requested that if no immediate family claimed his belongings, this envelope was to be delivered only to Claire Harper. I frowned. Who was he? Officer Ruiz hesitated. His name was Samuel Bennett. The name meant nothing to me. I've never met anyone named Samuel Bennett. I believe you, the officer replied quietly. That's what makes this unusual. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. It showed my mother standing beside an older man outside a lighthouse. She couldn't have been older than 30. She was smiling, not the polite smile from our family albums, a real smile, one I'd never seen before. On the back of the photograph, written in blue ink, were 7 words. When Claire is ready, tell her everything. Nothing else. No explanation, no letter, no address. I looked back at Officer Ruiz. Who exactly was this man? He folded his hands. We've spent 2 days searching for relatives. There aren't any. He lived alone for almost 20 years. No wife, no children, no siblings. I glanced back at the photograph. If he wasn't family, why was my mother's picture inside his private box? Officer Ruiz slowly opened another file, because there was something else in the box. He carefully placed an old brass key beside the photograph. Attached to it was a faded motel key tag, Room 214, Harborview Inn, Bar Harbor, Maine, closed in 2009. Then he looked directly at me. Miss Harper, Mr. Bennett left written instructions. If you came here, I was supposed to tell you one sentence exactly as he wrote it. I felt my heartbeat quicken. What sentence? The officer took a slow breath. He wrote, "Don't ask why your mother lied. Ask who she was trying to protect." For 11 years, I believed I knew everything about my mother. In less than 5 minutes, a dead stranger had convinced me that wasn't true. And for the first time since her funeral, I wasn't thinking about the woman who raised me. I was wondering who she had been before I was born. I didn't drive home. Instead, I drove straight to the Portland Public Library. Not because I expected to solve an 11-year-old mystery in one afternoon, but because my mother had taught me something when I was little. When something doesn't make sense, she'd always say, start with the records. For 23 years, she worked as the city librarian. She trusted archives more than memories. So did I. The librarian on duty recognized me immediately. "Claire," she smiled. "What brings you in this early?" "I'm looking for newspaper archives from around 1998 to 2002. She pointed me toward the digital records room. 3 hours passed before I found the first clue. A tiny article buried on page 7 of an old newspaper. Local fisherman rescues woman after coastal storm. The accompanying photograph was grainy. The fisherman was identified as Samuel Bennett. The rescued woman wasn't named, but I recognized the coat. Dark green, large silver buttons. My mother wore that exact coat in every winter photograph I owned from the late 90s. I enlarged the image. The woman's face was partially turned away, but I didn't need to see it. I already knew. I kept searching. Another article appeared nearly a year later. A community fundraiser for rebuilding damaged docks. Samuel Bennett attended, standing beside him. My mother again. This time there was no doubt. They knew each other, not casually, comfortably, close enough to stand shoulder to shoulder while smiling at the same camera. Yet she had never once spoken his name. Why? That question followed me all afternoon. Around 4 o'clock, I drove to the address listed in Samuel Bennett's file, a modest white cottage overlooking Casco Bay. The police had already released the property to the executor of his estate. An older woman was locking the front gate when I arrived. "I'm sorry," I said. "Did you know Samuel Bennett?" She studied me carefully. "You must be Claire." The words stopped me cold. "You know who I am?" She nodded slowly. "My name is Margaret Collins. I lived next door for 26 years. Sam talked about you every birthday." A chill ran through me. He never met me. "I know. He still talked about you." She opened her purse and removed a small envelope. "He told me if a woman named Claire Harper ever came here, I was supposed to give her this." The envelope had been sealed with old blue wax. Inside was a single motel receipt. Harborview Inn, room 214, date October 18th, 1999. Folded behind the receipt was another handwritten note. "The guest register tells the truth. Nothing else. No explanation." Margaret watched my expression. "I asked Sam once why he kept those papers." "What did he say?" She smiled sadly. "He said some promises take a lifetime to keep." Before I could ask another question, a black SUV rolled slowly past the cottage. The driver looked directly at me, didn't wave, didn't smile, just kept driving. Margaret's face changed immediately. "Claire, you need to leave. Now." "Who was that?" She lowered her voice. "Someone who has been asking about Sam's paper since the day he died." My heartbeat quickened. "They've already been here twice. What do they want?" "I don't know. But if they're watching you, they think you've already found something important." I looked down at the motel receipt still resting in my hand. For the first time, this no longer felt like an old family mystery. Someone alive, right now, was trying to make sure I never discovered what happened in room 214. I didn't go to the Harborview Inn that night. Every instinct told me someone expected me to. Instead, I drove back to Portland and parked 2 blocks away from my bookstore. I turned off the headlights and sat there watching the empty street. 15 minutes later, the same black SUV rolled slowly past my shop. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone was following me. I waited until it disappeared before driving home by a different route. Sleep never came. At 6 o'clock the next morning, I called Officer Ruiz. "I need a favor." 20 minutes later, we met at a small coffee shop near the courthouse. I placed the motel receipt on the table. "I think someone else is looking for this." He studied it carefully. "The Harborview Inn closed years ago." "I know, but someone wants whatever happened in room 214 to stay buried." Ruiz nodded slowly. "I asked around after you left yesterday." He slid a thin folder toward me. Samuel Bennett wasn't just a fisherman. Inside the folder was a newspaper clipping from 1999. "Local man honored for rescuing child during coastal storm." The child wasn't identified. The article said only that the family requested privacy. My eyes stopped on one sentence. "The rescue occurred near Harborview Inn." Ruiz leaned forward. "There's something else." He handed me an evidence photograph, an old leather journal. It wasn't in the safety deposit box. It was found hidden beneath a loose floorboard in Samuel's bedroom after the house was searched. Why wasn't I told? Because we only found it yesterday. The journal was locked. Its brass lock matched the brass key found in the envelope. The same key I'd been carrying in my pocket since yesterday. Ruiz pushed the journal toward me. "I think Samuel wanted you to open it." My fingers trembled as I inserted the key. The lock clicked immediately. The first page contained only one sentence. "If Claire is reading this, I have failed to keep my promise." I slowly turned the page. Every entry was dated. Every page described my mother, not as a stranger, not as a friend, as someone Samuel had spent months protecting. Then I reached an entry dated October 18th, 1999, the same date printed on the motel receipt. "Tonight, someone tried to take the child." I froze. The child? There was no name, only those 2 words. The next sentence hit even harder. "Emily refused to run alone. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would never tell Claire the truth unless she came looking for it herself. Emily. That was my mother's first name. I kept reading. My heartbeat grew faster with every line. Samuel described men arriving at the motel after midnight. Arguments, broken glass, someone pounding on room 214's door. Then the final paragraph stopped abruptly. Half the page had been torn away. Someone had removed it. Recently, the torn edge was still clean, fresh. Officer Ruiz noticed it too. Someone has already been inside this journal. Before either of us could say another word, Ruiz's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed instantly. What? He stood up so suddenly his chair tipped backward. He looked straight at me. Claire, Margaret Collins's house caught fire 30 minutes ago. She's alive. But whoever did it searched the entire place before the fire started. I felt my stomach tighten. They were looking for something. Ruiz nodded. I think they were looking for you. At that exact moment, my own phone vibrated. Unknown number, one new text message. No greeting, no signature, only one sentence. You open the journal. Leave Maine today or you'll disappear just like your mother almost did. I didn't leave Maine. If someone wanted me gone that badly, I was finally standing close enough to the truth to matter. Officer Ruiz immediately requested police protection for Margaret Collins, but by the time investigators searched the burned house, almost everything had been destroyed. Almost. Inside a metal cookie tin hidden beneath the kitchen sink, firefighters recovered one fireproof envelope. Margaret had written my name across the front. She must have hidden it moments before the fire started. Inside was a cassette tape, nothing else. No letter, no explanation, just a faded label. October 18th, 1999, room 214. Ruiz found an old cassette player in the evidence room. Neither of us spoke as the tape began to play. For several seconds, there was only static. Then my mother's voice, young, terrified. If you're hearing this, Samuel, they found us. A man's voice answered. Take Claire through the back stairs. I'll keep them busy. My heart stopped. Claire. Me. The tape continued. Heavy pounding echoed through the recording. Someone shouted from outside the motel room. Open the door! Another crash, glass breaking. My mother started crying. They're after the documents. Samuel answered calmly. Forget the documents. Save your daughter. The recording suddenly ended. Ruiz slowly stopped the tape. Neither of us moved. For 39 years, I believed my father had died from a heart attack when I was 6. That wasn't true. The investigation uncovered records buried in federal archives. My father hadn't died. He had entered witness protection after exposing a financial crime ring that had stolen millions through fake property transfers along the Maine coast. Samuel Bennett had been the family's closest friend. The motel wasn't a vacation, it was a safe house. The people chasing my parents weren't random criminals. They wanted one thing, the original financial records proving who controlled the fraud. My mother escaped with me. Samuel stayed behind. For the next 25 years, he quietly protected every remaining piece of evidence while making sure no one ever discovered where I lived. When the final suspects were arrested years later, he believed the danger had ended. He was wrong. One man had never been caught, the same man who followed me in the black SUV. Police tracked him using traffic cameras less than 48 hours after Margaret's house fire. His vehicle contained forged passports, cash, and copies of old land records connected to the same criminal network. He was arrested before he could leave the state. For the first time in more than 2 decades, the entire truth finally existed in one place. Weeks later, I stood alone beside Samuel Bennett's grave. There were no television cameras, no reporters, only fresh flowers and the sound of waves hitting the rocky shoreline. I finally know who you were, I whispered. You kept your promise. Without Samuel, my mother and I would never have survived. Without his silence, I never would have had the chance to live an ordinary life. The police returned the cassette tape to me after the investigation closed. It now sits beside a framed photograph of my mother on the bookshelf in my office. Not as a reminder of fear, as a reminder that real courage is often invisible. Sometimes the greatest heroes never ask to be remembered. They simply make sure someone else gets the chance to keep living. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. If this reminded you that the truth can stay hidden for years, but never forever, take care of yourself. Take care of the people who protect you, and I'll see you in the next story.